The big reveal is at the end. Sam is building it up. So there better be like indoor fireworks and all that to see who it really is. So thanks ever so much, everyone, for coming to join our masterclass today, all about how to outbound smarter, not harder. We've got a really packed agenda, so we're going to kick it off straight away. One piece I would say is if you do have questions, the way that we'll do this is add them into the chat. And then when Justine takes a drink of water, I'll interject and say, we have a question. So add them into the chat and I'll pick the best ones to speak. So Justine, I will turn it over to you to just introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll kick off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Justine. I work in product marketing at a company called UserGems. If you are not familiar with UserGems, what we do is we automate the detection of buyer signals. So at the person level, so what's making a person more likely to buy a product. And then we automate end to end. So from adding to a CRM to adding to an outreach sequence, notifying the right rep, et cetera. So basically taking out all of the manual work of outbound at the right time when we think they're going to convert. So today, what I am going to talk about is kind of the shift in outbound from the spray and pay model to a more strategic approach of outbound, how to use buyer signals, which is a little bit different than like intent or something that you might be used to from like Sixth Sense or demand based. That's more like a company signal. So I'll talk about how you can use people signals. I'll tell you a little bit about how UserGems does it internally with our own product, but also how you can do it with tools like Sales Nav, or if you have something like ZoomInfo or Apollo, you can use it with any type of data tool just a little bit more manually. And then I'll share our playbook. So we run all of these plays internally. Our outbound team, we do probably about 50 or 60% of our pipeline comes from outbound. So we are a very outbound heavy company. So we test all of the stuff out first, and then we share our playbooks every time we update them. So I'll share them all with you. But yeah, if as David said, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'll answer them as we go along. But I will share my screen and then get started. And I apologize already that I'm working off one screen because I am not normally in London. I'm traveling here, which is what led me here today. So unfortunately, the one screen, not great. All right, cool. So I kind of talked about this a little bit. We're kind of moving into this new type of outbound. So depending on what side of LinkedIn you're on, some people actually say outbound is dead. We don't agree with that. We just think you need to be a bit more strategic with the way that you're doing outbound. So if you remember like 2022, the year of that everyone's buying a bunch of tech stack, you're kind of just sending out 1,000 emails. The thought here is you'll book X amount of meetings from more outbound. So more phone calls, more emails. Everyone's inbox now is flooded and it's a lot harder to book a meeting. So you want to be a little bit more strategic with who you're reaching out to, why you're reaching out to them, and at what point of their buying cycle is going to make them convert the most. So I mentioned this before, but it's a lot harder to book a meeting. And I'm sure all of you know as SDR leaders and your teams, and depending on if you're reflecting back on being an SDR and SDR leader a year or 2 years ago, it's now taking almost 5 times the amount of activities to book one meeting as it did 5 years ago. So this is really draining for an outbound team, especially if they're cranking out a lot of activities and a lot of manual tasks, and they're starting to get burned out and they're not seeing any results, and your teams are turning over. And it's really the type here of getting more strategic and being able to take care of your teams. So there's a few different types of signals that you might be familiar with. You might be familiar with something like Sixth Sense or demand based, which kind of sits in this company signals bucket. So things like somebody visited your website, somebody downloaded a piece of content, attended a webinar, etc. The thing with company signals is they're a bit noisy, and you don't actually know most of the time who at the company is more likely to buy, if likely to buy at all. And the tough part here that we've seen with SDR and BDR teams is that they get all of these signals, but they don't actually really know what to do with them. So like they might have had one type of enablement session with like a marketing team, and now they have all these signals and they end up kind of drowning in it, and maybe they get the wrong outreach or they don't get any outreach at all. And what we found here is that these signals without an action just ends up being a lot of noise for SDR teams. So where UserGems is focusing on is this middle bucket right here, which is people signals. So things like what is going to make this individual person more likely to buy my product and why? So things like they have a past relationship with you. So they've used your product in the past, or they've already bought your product. They went through like a buying cycle at some capacity, whether they purchased you or didn't. New hires and promotions. So somebody who's new in role normally is looking to solve some type of a problem. They were hired to grow the business. They were hired to solve a problem. They have a budget, most likely, and they're going to need to make an impact within their first 60, 90 days. Our newest one that we're working on right now is customer referrals. You might have some type of referral program internally. We're looking to operationalize this. More to come on that one. Today, I'm going to talk more about the past relationships and the new hires. Something that's really draining, like I mentioned, all of this is manual. So you might get like a report of signals from your marketing team, maybe like send you a bunch of stuff. Or you have to go out and you have to look at this yourself in something like Sales Nav. You have to look at something in like a database and start searching for these signals specifically, and then search for the person at the account that you actually want to prospect into. And then you have to add them to the CRM and then add them to Outreach, SalesLoft, Groove, whatever type of SEP tool you use. So what we actually find when we run data tests with companies is that they're missing normally around the 80% mark of these people signals within their key buying time. So most people are most likely to buy within their first 100 days. So if you're not doing all of those manual steps at within the 100 days of them making one of these job movements, the time to conversion goes down significantly. And the reason I kind of mentioned this before in terms of like the new hires piece, but new executives spend more than half of their budget within their first 100 days in a new role. So the time to outbound piece here is really critical. So having some type of like structure and focusing on one of these signals at a time with your team, like at a specific point of the week or the month, could be really helpful. Just to kind of keep it top of mind for your team, even if they are using something like Sales Nav to do this. Just kind of getting into a routine of looking for this signal, even if it is a bit manual, will end up being really important in the end when they are trying to get better with the type of outreach that they're doing. So this is our outbound process. All of the visuals I have is with like our own product, but I will anecdotally tell you how to do this with other systems if you don't have UserGems, obviously. But what we do here is we first identify like, what are we looking at? So we have a group of target accounts. We change these quarterly. And then also our ADRs, which is the equivalent of an SDR, they have pet accounts. So they get to also pick a subset of accounts that they want to go after each month. And we run our signals on all of those accounts. The signals that we look for are past relationships and new hires. And then the action that we do, we have outreach. So what we do first is we automatically add them to our CRM. They get sent into an outreach sequence. We have about 6 or 7, depending on like who they are and where they're going. And then we notify via Slack. So it's really seamless. They get put into the outreach sequence for our ADRs, and the Slack notification just says, hey, someone was added to outbound or was added to outreach. Keep an eye out for your manual task. So first, the signals that we use, like I mentioned, we use right now past relationships and new hires and promotions, fully automated. So our past relationships, what we do is we do past buyers. So anyone in an opportunity, so closed won, open, closed lost, we start it in mid stage. So like if you wanted to try to do this yourself and start looking for past relationships like someone changing jobs from open ops or closed lost ops, or new hires and promotions in open ops or closed lost ops, I would recommend starting it like stage 2 or 3, depending on like how far in your buyer cycle they would need to be to actually like know what the product does, see some value in it. I wouldn't run it on like all open and closed lost ops. And then what we do is we prioritize our ABM accounts first. But if someone does change jobs into an account that fits our ICP, so just like essentially the industries we sell to, the amount of employees we sell to, and the regions, we will also prioritize those a little bit higher as well. We've been having really good success with new hires in closed lost ops. So like basically we call this reviving the dead. So a new executive in a closed lost opportunity maybe are more likely to start evaluating this problem again, because likely if someone just evaluated it, that means in their organization, they're like, hey, we have this problem and we need to solve it. If they didn't go with a different vendor or they're unhappy with that vendor, this is a really good time to just say, hey, your company had evaluated this in the past, could it still make sense? I see something in the chat. Okay, great. It's just you, David.
Just
saw
me.
that one. I saw that one. I was like really excited.
Yeah, sorry.
All good. Yes, Miranda, it is 70% of a new executive's budget is spent in the first 100 days. This came from not us. That's like an industry stat. I can find it for you if you're interested. Cool. So why it matters here, we ran, last year, at the end of last year, like as outbound was almost quote unquote dead, says all of the LinkedIn gurus, we ran an analysis on past champions or past users in opportunities. And we did this on our own opportunities and our customers' opportunities, and found that with past champs on open ops, you have 54% bigger deal sizes. The win rates go up 100%. They convert higher, but also the sales cycles are longer. That's one stat that's not, or shorter, sorry. So we also saw these sales cycles go down in length significantly.
So, Justine, just a question that's come through. How do you work with GDPR?
Yeah. So it's a good question. So GDPR, what it does is it tells you who, like, if you are able to process somebody's information, it does not tell you if you can or cannot reach out to them via email. So think about like storing their contact information in the CRM. That is what GDPR does. And the way that this works with GDPR is we are finding publicly available information that a person publishes themselves on a site that is used for sales. If it's private, like if they have like a private LinkedIn or private information, we wouldn't surface that information. If you were to, like, if you have an outbound team or like if you have an outbound motion right now, whatever stands with your legal team also applies to this. So like if you're able to write a cold outbound email to somebody, your sales rep added a contact to your CRM, it's the same thing. So I'm sure that whatever your legal team says already, they've already considered this. And then in terms of new hires, here's the stat again, 70% budget spent within the first 100 days. And they are still more likely to convert in their first 3 months. They're not as likely to convert as someone who's bought your product before. But we've been having some really great success here with new hires and promos. Cool. So in terms of actioning, so we use something called workflows. It's native to UserGems. And what it does is it finds the signal, finds the person based on what we tell it to. So our target accounts and our buyer persona. So we sell to senior level marketing, sales, and RevOps teams. So anyone that fits that, if they are newly promoted or change jobs into one of our target accounts, this automatically gets added to our CRM. Then it's automatically added to an outreach sequence based on who they are. So like if they're in marketing, they get a little bit different of a outbound than someone in RevOps. And if they're a VP, they get a little bit different of a message than someone who's like a director. And the reason is the VPs get a better gift, truthfully, is the difference in that sequence step. If you wanted to do this manually, you absolutely can. So if you have a list of target accounts, or if you wanted to build like a close lost or open or something like that to prospect into those accounts, if you're able to, depending on like if you have a like wait period between if it's in the AE or for the SDR, you can upload that into Sales Nav, and you can search for based on their role started, and you can then add that to your CRM. So it's a little bit more manual. If you have an enrichment tool to find like Cognism, you can find their email before adding them to the CRM, or you can do it all through like an enrichment tool as well, and just verify the job start date on LinkedIn, just making sure that they're within that first 90 days of a job change.
Question on that, Justine, Dan mentioned, is how quickly are you able to track the job moves? I wasn't quite sure if you answered that piece.
I didn't, but it really depends. So like with UserGems, it depends on what, like specifically with UserGems, it depends on what package you have. We either just do them weekly or monthly. What we find though is that if you're wanting to do this manually, like as long as you're doing this once a month, that is enough. So people are evaluating tech in their first 90 days, not on their first day, not on their first week. Like they're changing jobs. They have to like evaluate what's happening. They have to see like what are the current status of everything. So it's okay if it's like within the first 30 days, but we can do it weekly if you wanted something like UserGems. But if you wanted to run this just with your team, once a month is fine, like a block once a month.
Cheers. And then another question came in from James about, is the personalization in the first email AI-led? And what are the open and reply rates like based on these automated emails?
Yeah, good question. We're working on an AI email. So they're not AI right now. What we do is we match them based on like the persona and their accounts and their seniority, which are all like UserGems fields that we like already automatically send. And then we pair that with an outreach sequence. But the AI is really cool. We are building that right now. We're testing it internally where the first email would be generated in outreach right now with custom verbiage based on like, are they a new hire? Are they a past champion? What do they have on their LinkedIn? What's in their bio? What type of job do they have? It's been really cool. It's a little bit tricky. There are some like tools that are dabbling in this right now, but you can definitely try it. In terms of the outreach rates, actually, or the response rates, I actually do have that, so I'll skip ahead. So on the left here, you can see cold outbound. So these are like our actual sequences. Like this is from our outreach. So you can see here, these are just like our high touch, meaning that there's a lot more manual steps. So a lot more personalization. We're trying to compare it just a little bit. And then this one here is past champions, so past customers. So the response rate's 26% compared to like a 5% reply rate on cold outbound. And the new hires is still higher, so like 8 or 14%, but still not as high, obviously, as a past user.
Questions coming thick and fast now. Daria asks, do you use LinkedIn data as the truth source when a person changes job, or are there other sources that you look at?
Yeah, we primarily use LinkedIn. We do also use some like other publicly available information. So like if someone like a publicly traded company or something posts that they have a new executive team or something like that, we can capture that. Something that we don't do though is capture anything like if they're an advisor, like if they're posting that they started being an advisor with a company, we wouldn't like surface any of that as a job change. But yes, we do primarily use LinkedIn.
Cheers.
Yeah, something I will say though with that is some questions that we get from the European market is like if you have a different kind of like a LinkedIn version than LinkedIn, does the match rates with UserGems get worse? The answer is no. Typically, like we have this, like we're able to surface the same amount with a lot of our customers that sell into EMEA. Where we do see a little bit of a drop off is like in the APAC market. But yeah, so in the European markets though, we still see that LinkedIn is still fine. In different languages, yes. We would still need like especially with the outreach sequences, the AI probably, well, we could maybe program it to do a different language. You might want to spot check it though, I will say. But that's like with any AI generation. But yeah, we do have some customers that like specifically are in like the South America market. So like it's mostly Spanish and Portuguese. We're able to accommodate them. And then we do also have some customers that I think it might be German. But yeah, we would have to work with you on making sure that it would work. I'm just kind of in the chat, David. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like really, I kind of am more into the questions than what I have to talk about. We right now don't collect data about competitors. One of the signals that we're working on right now is what ones of your customer competitors should you sell to and when. So that's coming this year, but we don't do anything in terms of competitors at this moment. Well, let me go back really quick. But keep throwing in the chat. I'm happy to talk. Cool. So this is just, I'll kind of breeze through this because I think I already mentioned this. This is just kind of like what we do in our own platform, but you can then do this in something like Sales Nav, just adding to the CRM and then adding to Outreach or Sales Loft or whatever SCP that you use. And then we just think it's nice to send a Slack message just so that ADRs know what's going on. The Slack message literally just says, hey, we've added this person to the sequence. If the task is manual, we'll mention that they have to go do it. If it's not manual, then we'll just say it's an automated first step. Went through our messages, our response rates. Here's what our sequences actually look like. And we have a playbooks page on our website that you can, build your own sequences in Outreach or Sales Loft using these playbooks and run them like with your manual steps. But our first step is manual, it's research. So the reason that the ADRs do this is that it ends up coming back up like later in the sequences to like reference something that they've researched previously. So we have them do this first. But you can definitely do like an automated email first and then a research step if that's more preferable for the way that your team works. And then this is a example of our past champion outreach. So we use the custom fields from Salesforce into Outreach that will pull in like the past company, their current company, things like that. These are like UserGems specific fields, but you could maybe build something or just manually type it in depending on what the volume looks like. But it's really quick. So we don't really ask for a ton in the first email. And we did add a gifting step, which is not shown here. So we work with a company called Postal, and we send a gift card in the first step as just like a congratulations. For director and below, it's like coffee, so it's $10. And for VP plus, it's like a nicer gift, like a $50 or $100 amount gift in lunch, or you can send that. We dabbled in champagne at one point. You can really do whatever type of gift makes sense for you. Bombora is a like they do competition stuff, right? Like it's actually, yeah. Trying to refresh my memory on what Bombora is. Basically, if someone goes to someone's page, like to research them, then Bombora will tell you, yeah, we don't do that. We are not in that. We don't do anything with like page views or website views or G2 views or something like that yet. And I don't know if we're going to go that route. We've talked about like potentially working with Bombora and like kind of doing an integration type thing, or like if you already have Bombora signals, you can upload them to UserGems and kind of like bring your own signal, but that's just not something that we're doing natively.
Dave asks a question, Dave Cronshaw, about how do you find gifting works in EMEA compared to the US?
Yeah, it's really tough with gifting in EMEA. I think it really depends on the specific market. Like in the US, like if you send someone a gift, they're like obsessed with it. It could be different in EMEA where it's like I'm in London right now. And I think you could probably send people gift cards and things like that to take meetings or just even as a congratulations, whereas like in other markets it might not be so kosher. So I think maybe use your best judgment and check it with your marketing team in terms of like each like market specifically. But something, yeah, something that I would mention is like maybe the way that we phrase it is not like, here's a gift to take a demo. We do it where it says, congratulations, here's a gift to like get you started in your first, like here's a coffee to get you jump started into your first week or something like that. So it's like a little bit, it's not as bribey sounding. It's more in good faith rather than like trying to get them to sit for a demo is how we use the gifting. A good question. This is just an example of our new hire. I want to be mindful of time. So I want everyone to be able to ask a question. I'll send, maybe David, I'll send you these, like the links to our playbooks, and you can get all of these just so you can kind of replicate them in your own outreach if you're interested. I'll send you a link to our playbook library. But last thing from me, we are offering a free data test if you're interested. We are not bribing. We're not giving any incentives here. You know, but we do have a raffle that we do just normally. If you do a data test, you can enter into receiving a 500 in whatever currency that you have raffle. Use it for like a summer vacation, use it towards your summer plans. You know, or you can just get a data test for free if you're interested. Yes, the outreach sequence is in our playbook or in our playbook library, so we'll be sure to share it.
Great, thanks, Justine. We've got a few minutes left. Does anybody have any other questions they want to mention? Come off mute and question away.
How much does it cost, Justine?
Yeah, really depends on like how many contacts you have or how many target accounts you have. That's like the two different ranges of pricing. I work in marketing. I can't give you a full price. I'm sure your marketing team does the same thing too, but it ranges.
Thank you.
Yeah, raffle sounds fun. Thank you, James. Yeah, the data test is cool. Basically, you would tell our team, like we can sync with your Salesforce or your HubSpot, or you can send us like CSV files of the data, but we would need your target accounts and your buyer persona. And what we can tell you is how many people in your customer accounts have already changed jobs and went somewhere else, and how many of those are you missing? And then we can also tell you how many new hires that meet your buyer persona just joined your target accounts and how many of those you're missing. And then we can kind of extrapolate like, okay, based on your normal close rates and your deal size, like how much pipeline could this give you over the next 12 months?
Great, we're at the bottom of the hour and want to make sure people get to their meetings. So Justine, thank you ever so much for your last thing that you're going to be doing in Europe before we go back to the States. Really appreciate your time. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining. I will stop recording now.